Well, welcome everyone. Thank you all for attending, and particularly you, those of you who made the choice between the two enticing engagements. Our speaker tonight is Sarah Rees. Now, Sarah is the head of stakeholder engagement at Lancaster University, and what Sarah is going to talk about is the university's strategy. So I'm going to shut up now. I'm going to hand over to Sarah. Sarah will sort of speak, and then we'll have an opportunity for questions. And I just would ask everybody, if you do want to ask questions, if you could please indicate with the hand, it makes it easier for me to spot it. Okay, Sarah, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you everyone for coming along and for choosing this talk. I will endeavour to make it worth your while. So I'm going to share my screen. I've got some slides which I'm going to use really to help me as much as anything else. So if I can just double check that everyone can see my slides, that's great, thank you very much. And so as James mentioned, I'm head of stakeholder engagement at Lancaster University. I've actually been at the university for 17 years, I think now, and I've had that role around stakeholder engagement for around the last 7. And I also think about how we're working across our place in terms of that civic lead as well. So I'm talking about the university strategy, and that was released in 2021 and will take us to 2026. And that's a plan for sustainable and transformative change. And really, we've got a mission to be a force for good by bringing communities together to engage, inform and transform. And that's through the research that we do, through our teaching and the ways in which we educate and equip our students for a fulfilling life and to be the change that they and we want to see, and also seeking to build economic growth and well-being in the region. So let me just check that hasn't moved on. It's probably me. There we go. I think we've moved on now. So our vision is to be a university that's globally significant and a university that delivers high quality research and teaching and student experience, and also one that engages locally, nationally and internationally. And that then informs our purpose. So to advance knowledge, wisdom and understanding through our teaching and research. And we want to also engage with others and use our collective intellectuals. So again, that research and teaching, as well as our wider capabilities as a major organisation that procures and employs staff as a force for good to create positive change. And for those of you who've been around Lancaster for a long time and around the university for a long time, you'll know that actually this was really reflected in our founding charter as well in 1964, when we said we wanted to advance knowledge and wisdom, again through our teaching and research, and by the example and influence of our corporate life. So that's a thread that's run through our strategy, not always as strongly, but it's really good to see it back in there now. So we have 3 priorities. I've talked about them really already, but the first is research that transforms thinking and practice, and that's to improve outcomes for communities, for culture and society and the economy, and again regionally, nationally and globally. And we have a range of research strengths that we really want to draw on, and we also work across disciplines as well, and those strengths come through particularly in health and data security, sustainability and the environment. And I think what's really important is those things resonate with many of the challenges that we're facing in the world as well. So it's really about how we can bring that to bear. Our second priority, unsurprisingly, is teaching and learning that transforms people's lives and society. And we want that to be research-led and also employer-informed, because it's really important that the students who graduate from the university at whatever level have the right skills and the knowledge to be employable. We also have themes around internationalisation, sustainability and inclusivity. And we have a real commitment to combining that excellence with equity. We're really proud of the fact that a lot of our students come from state school backgrounds, and it's a higher proportion than in other universities that are similar to Lancaster. So we continue that commitment to delivering social mobility and widening participation for those who are from perhaps what we might call non-traditional backgrounds from a university perspective. Our third priority, of course, is engagement. So to engage actively with our communities to transform wider society. And those of you who've heard me speak before, I always emphasize this point really, but for me that engagement is two-way. It's about co-creation, it's about working together for mutual benefit. So it is about establishing those innovative and collaborative relationships that help us meet the challenges of society, and also from the university's perspective inform and stimulate our research and teaching. In terms of engagement, we want to capitalise on government policy for the North. Currently that's called Levelling Up. Previously it was called the Industrial Strategy. So it changes a bit depending on the current government. But there is that real focus on levelling up and place-based investment. And as you'll know, again, we have a real focus on those kind of high value and high impact projects like Eden Project Morecambe, like cyber with National Cyber Force locating in Samlesbury, health innovation and net zero. So I wanted to just provide a bit of context in terms of the backdrop and where we are now as a university. This slide's gone a bit strange since I dropped it in, but it's just an overview of the student numbers at the university from 2021 to 22. And the headline really is that we had 16,000 just over students at Lancaster University in Bailrig in 2021 to 22. And of those, 11,000 were undergraduates. Were from the UK, and 5,000 just over were coming from the European Union or from elsewhere around the world. And that was fairly steady state because in 2020 to 21 we had 16,500 students. As many of you will know, we have a global student community, as well as the students who were taught here at the university. On the campus, we have partnerships across the region, so in Blackpool, Blackburn and Furness College in Barrow, and also at UA92 in Manchester. And we have almost 3,000 students studying with those colleges. And then we have almost 7,500 students studying around the world at our overseas campuses. So in Malaysia, China, Germany and Ghana. We've also got over 161,000 alumni who've gone back out around the world to 177 countries. So I think when we think about the impact that coming to Lancaster can have, not the university, but the place, those people go away from here with warm memories of Lancaster as a place. And that can only be a good thing when we're thinking about how we position Lancaster as a place in the world. So just a few highlights in terms of our teaching and learning. Currently we're ranked in the top 15 in all of the UK league tables. We're joint 122nd in the Times Higher Education World University Rankings, and that's the highest position the university's achieved over time. In the latest student satisfaction survey, we came first in the whole of the North and 11th in the UK. And we've really recently started to measure and report on our social and environmental sustainability, and really pleased to have come in at 7th currently in that. And I'll talk a little bit more about sustainability in a few minutes. We've talked about research and engagement. So in terms of our research, there was a national exercise called the Research Excellence Framework that reported last year actually, but from 2021, and that showed that 91% of our research is rated as internationally excellent or world leading. And there's now also a new framework that we respond to called the Knowledge Exchange Framework, which had its second iteration last year. And we were in the top 20% of all the English universities for our work with business, the public and third sector, and local growth and regeneration. And the reason it's the English universities is because at the moment that framework only covers England. So in terms of sustainability, we have committed to, we declared a climate emergency in 2020, and we've committed to be carbon neutral by 2035. So for heating and electricity emissions, the aim is to do that by 2030, and for all other emissions by 2035. We are currently one of the highest producers of renewable energy in the university sector, and we have managed to reduce heating and electricity emissions by 50% since 2005. It's ambitious for all of us. It's challenging, I think, whatever organisation is committing to reaching net zero. Many of you may know we had a solar farm receive planning permission last year that will go on site a little bit later this year, and hopefully will be starting to produce energy by the end of the year, and that's forecast to generate 40% of the electricity, or the equivalent to 40% of the electricity needs of the campus in a year. Our biggest challenge will be hitting our scope 3 emissions, so those are the ones from staff and student travel and from our supply chain, and so considerable work's being done to in all of those areas to consider how we can achieve that. I mentioned research, and so I've just given a few examples of the varied research that goes on at the university, just to bring it to life a little bit. We have citizen science research. Many of you will have heard from or met Sue Black when she was Pro-Vice Chancellor for Engagement. Her H-Unique research project is compiling the world's largest database of hands and of human hand images for analysis and interpretation, and that's to help to identify and convict criminals. The big Windermere water quality survey took place for the second time recently. The results were recently published. That's about understanding the quality of the water in Windermere, what might be influencing that, and what changes may need to be made to maintain that. We've got all sorts of different research in arts and social sciences and sociology. We're looking at the experience of mothers in family courts, and a really vicious cycle of children being repeatedly taken into care, and considering if different intervention would achieve different outcomes. We have palliative care research, which is looking at how we can help to ensure a good death for people through pain management and through proper conversations with families and those who are dying. I was talking about how we can help to support a good death for people around the world. And then finally, I was just going to touch on some of the research that our researchers are doing around planetary ecosystems like the Amazon and coral reefs. So I was then, in fact, I didn't talk to you about sustainability, which I said I would. I did. Thank you. Sorry. Okay. So moving forward, I wanted to talk a bit more then about what we're doing regionally, and so supporting regional growth. So on your screen, hopefully you can see a map which shows Lancashire and Cumbria, and then the arrows that come out for it show the range of organisations and the geography of those we're working with or have been working with across Lancashire and Cumbria. Because since 2016, the university's been awarded more than £100 million to support small and medium enterprises in the region around business innovation. And we've had an independent analysis of that done, which showed that for each pound of public spend money that was given, 18 to 28 pounds of additional benefit has been brought to the region's economy through growth and jobs. And by 2023, which we're now in, so I think towards the summer we're talking about here, we will, along with a number of other higher education institutions, have supported another 3,000 small and medium enterprises. The thing that's a challenge with this is a lot of that funding has come from the European Union, and so the impact of Brexit continues to work through, and that money will cease to be available from July. So these programmes that have funded that business collaboration will be coming to an end, and therefore strategically one of the really important priorities for us is to look at how we diversify and bring in other types of income to continue to support regional business development. You may have heard of the Shared Prosperity Fund, which is seen as the vehicle that replaces European money. It looks really different and it won't impact in the same way. So we've got to really think quite carefully and work quite differently to really think about how we can do that. My next slide is very busy, and it's not intended for you to read every word that's on it. The key thing is that it shows the opportunities around an innovation corridor that runs from Manchester and Liverpool in the south right up to Carlisle in the north. And this really reflects the fact that as people have changed how they approach work and how they live since the pandemic. People can work more flexibly, they can locate in different ways. And so what we are seeing is opportunities to really open up Lancashire in particular, but also we hope Cumbria, and to bring that innovation through. And so we've got examples in Barrow where we're involved with the town deal there. Obviously in Morecambe, we've recently had the news that the Levelling Up funding is going to provide the public part of the funding for Region Project Morecambe. And in Blackpool, we're partnered on their town deal and also around a multiversity, which was also announced as part of Levelling Up. We're working in Carlisle to look at the opportunities around the Borderlands growth deal, and that's again around employment and skills. And then through the university's own campus, the Innovation Campus, we've got a number of programmes, and I'll touch on those in a moment through some of the themes we're working across. And then of course, National Cyber Force was announced to be located in Samlesbury, and that provides another opportunity around cyber and digital growth. And there's also the Northwest Coastal Arc, which stretches from North Wales up to the north of Cumbria, where we can look at how businesses and universities can come together to support green growth. So this is really just to be illustrative rather than for anyone to sort of take in all of that detail in one go. So moving on to some of those key areas of activity, around net zero, the university's been working with other universities actually across the region for a number of years to support businesses to develop their approach to low carbon innovation and skills, and also green economic growth and supply chain work. And the latest part of that is this £14 million research and development programme, which is called EcoEye Northwest. And that's being delivered by a consortium of universities. And what I've just put on your screen as some of the co-designed and co-created challenges and research questions that have been put together by working with the businesses to understand the problems and the things that they're trying to solve. So these projects will then be delivered through shorter term programmes like one-year master's programmes, and also through longer term PhD level technical assistance where that support is more embedded. Building out from cybersecurity and data science, we are continuing to invest in this area. As I've mentioned, National Cyber Force was announced to be in Samlesbury in Lancashire, and that will represent an investment of £5 billion over time into Lancashire, which is the highest, I don't know if people are aware, but the highest level of investment for over 50 years. And quite later this year, I think the aim is to have 3,000 new staff located at the NCF headquarters in Samlesbury. And so that's going to create more highly skilled jobs in the region. That also means there needs to be a pipeline of highly skilled workers to feed those jobs. And that's a real opportunity. And again, it's one of the reasons the National Cyber Force were interested to locate here, because they want to draw from a diverse geography, diverse communities. So the university is backing this. We've making a strategic investment of £19 million over 5 years. That will bring in predominantly new researchers, but also professional and technical staff. From a research perspective, we're looking at the development of the next but one generation of secure and resilient data and cyber systems. But we're also investing in what we're calling the Data Cyber Quarter, which is going to be at the south end of our main campus. So where the green building is, the Info Lab, and where what we call our ISS, which is our Information Services building, that will actually become a Data Cyber Quarter, where we're looking to co-locate businesses to share facilities, and also develop education and training facilities to really develop and train that next generation of cybersecurity specialists. The development has had investment from the Office for Students, so we've had £4 million of investment specifically to support the student element of that, and then what that will result in is a range of programmes from undergraduate level through to postgraduate MBAs, and also professional training and reskilling in cybersecurity, computer science and data science. So those skills that will be needed to address those challenges in the future. Health innovation, I suspect many of you visited the Health Innovation Building over the last few years to receive vaccines, and this has been a major investment, again supported through European development funding, but one which is becoming that driver for our future growth around our innovation campus. So the new building co-locates our own university departments of health and medicine and our medical school with the public and private sector for health and care. And currently we have the National Institute for Health Research in there, along with private sector companies that are specialising in telehealth, infection prevention and medical devices. And we've also got a cancer charity, and the new NHS Lancashire and South Cumbria headquarters will have offices in the building as well. So what we're really hoping is that co-location of all of those different organisations really starts to drive innovation and opportunities to join up research with some of the business development and challenges that the health sector is facing as well. Through that funding, the European funding, we've supported 250 small and medium-sized enterprises through the health innovation work as part of their business innovation. And we're also growing a health innovation community with a dedicated calendar of events, and that's highlighting academic research, business support, and also those health and care focused cultural and social activities as well. So that's really part of how we want to drive forward the idea of that innovation campus going forward. I've included Eden Project Morecambe on here. We will all know and have celebrated, I think, that announcement of the £50 million of Levelling Up funding, which will be channelled through Lancaster City Council as the main receiving partner for that. It has come out of a long-standing partnership between the City Council, Lancashire County Council, the university and Lancashire Enterprise Partnership, as well as Eden, of course. And I think, again, for us, this absolutely exemplifies the way in which we want to work, where everybody gets behind a shared vision and a shared opportunity. And so moving forward now, obviously, we need to focus on the private sector investment, matching that public sector investment, and then making sure that build happens. But I think importantly, ensuring that the wider benefits that we all envisage for this in terms of benefits to our communities and the economic growth through the supply chain that can come from it can all be realised. And that's really important. We continue to work in partnership. We're committed to working in partnership and to realise our civic responsibilities. And I've just listed here some of the partners we're working with in our region. And that's, some of these have formal agreements or memoranda of understanding. Some of them are collaborative research projects. With Lancaster City Council, we have a whole range of work around environment and place regeneration and informing policy development. With Lancaster and Morecambe College, we've been developing the Morecambe Bay curriculum, and with other schools and early years providers in the Bay area. And that's about creating a place-based curriculum and developing the workforce and skills that will be needed for Eden, but also for the place more widely. University of Cumbria, I mentioned that we're working with them in Carlisle. That's around the Borderlands growth deal, and we also have joint work in Barrow around the town deal. And we've got a number of projects with Blackpool. It comes from that long-standing relationship, I think, with Blackpool College. But most recently, we were delighted the university received, with the council, actually a £5 million research funding to design and develop policies and work that will improve population health in Blackpool. So community members will be brought on board to act as co-researchers, and it's to ensure the inequalities in the town are understood, because as we know, they're widely reported upon, and to help create change. And I think for us, we're really pleased to partner with Blackpool. It's a unitary authority. It can offer something different, I think, in terms of the way we can work together, but we're always looking for that opportunity for what we can do in Lancaster. So when these opportunities come up, one of the conversations is where can we do this? Where can we partner to really make sure we can achieve maximum shared outcomes? I just wanted to mention the Morecambe Bay Anchor Collaborative. This is a collaborative of, well, as it says, really, some of the anchor organisations around Morecambe Bay. So it includes the City Council, it includes Barrow Borough Council and currently South Lakeland, which of course become a combined authority with Eden to become Westmoreland and Furness in just a couple of months. It also includes Morecambe Bay Hospitals Trust and some of them, and Lancaster and Morecambe College. And this is really about how we can work together and help to address some of the challenges which impact on wider determinants of health. So that's about environment, it's about housing, it's about good access to good quality work and green space. And that's all stuff, sort of projects that we're working on together. And just to finish, you mentioned, Alan, that you've come here instead of visited the judges, the museum this evening, and you know that community engagement for us is really important as well. We have that cultural and community engagement programme, which is really starting to take on the vibrancy again. I'm really pleased. We've got a lot more. The public lectures are in person. We've got some really interesting things coming through. Our Lancaster Exchange takes place in March, and I think invitations dropped into inboxes today. If not today, then tomorrow. And we've got the public arts offering. We're really proud to support some of the major community events in the city and across the district. So the Pride in both Lancaster and Morecambe, Light Up Lancaster, which is such a great opportunity to bring the community together. And we've just renewed our gold partnership with Lancaster Bid to support that city centre sort of development as well. Some of you may have heard of the Green Lancaster initiative. It's led through it's a joint initiative between the university and the Students' Union. It's also open to the community, and a number of projects are developed through that. And our students, of course, they live in the city. They live are based here for 3 years, and many of them go out as volunteers into local schools. And there's a whole range of staff who are members of committees or trustees or volunteer in their own time as well, and that's all really important to us. So I'm going to stop there. I hope that's given a bit of a flavour of what the strategy, I can see Alan now, which is lovely on the side, of the strategy and some of the ways in which we're bringing that to life. So I will stop sharing my screen and come back out and leave it over to you.
Okay, Sarah, thank you so much. A very comprehensive and informative presentation. And we've almost forgotten about little technical gremlins. So, questions. Who wants to start? Killed in the rush. Amy?
Trying to unmute. There we go. I'm unmuted. Am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hi. So thank you, Sarah. So really interesting presentation, and it's interesting to hear how it's developed since I think you and Sue were with us last. So it was not so much a question, just an observation. One of the hats I wear in Lancaster is chair of the governors of Dallas Road School. And on your very last slide, mention of student volunteer work in schools was made. And I just wanted to say, from a school perspective, we really value that. And the work that is done really contributes to the development of the curriculum and the ideas. So whether it's around decolonising and Black heritage and Lancaster's problematic history, or it's creative dance, or it's we had the Islamic Society in recently talking to the children around Ramadan and Eid and all the sort of aspects of that, and it's hugely valued and makes a real difference to the delivery of curriculum for our school, which is a very ethnically diverse community. So it's really part of our curriculum enrichment for all our children. So I say not so much a question, more a comment, but also a huge thanks as well to the university.
Oh, good. And I'm really pleased to hear that. And also the richness of that as well. I think sometimes we think of volunteering as being reading to children, for example, but actually to hear about that whole range of activities is really good to hear. And Nick Marsden, who leads on a lot of the school's engagement programme, I'm sure he'd be delighted to hear that as well. So thank you.
Excellent. So I'm going to go to Jim next.
Thank you very much for that, Sarah. University of which we can be justly proud. You talked initially about student numbers, and I think you gave a figure of 16,000. And I'm just asking if there are any proposals to increase that number. I ask this because there are concerns now in the city about the number of students who are not living on campus, but living in the city, the development of all these new blocks, not owned by the university in most cases, I hasten to add. Also, the loss of standard Victorian terraced housing in student rentals. Just wondering how much more the city can take, not forgetting also the problem of transporting these students up to the university morning and back in the afternoon, where commuters who live in Scotforth, Bowerham, Hayler, trying to get into town, often find the bus goes past, it's a university bus, it's got bus full. So there are quite a lot of issues, environmental issues, especially if the university is set to grow any further. Welcome any comment or information on that point, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not as close to plans around student growth, but I think there's a real focus on student experience. And I think in a way, some of the things you've just set out, Jim, are some of the things, there's some of the impacts perhaps for the local community. One of the things we need to also think about is how many students we can teach and give a really high quality university experience to as well. And that's one of the reasons why any growth that may happen would be very much incremental. So it would be a way in which it can be accommodated. I have heard recently about some of the challenges with transport, and I know that our colleagues in our estates team meet with Stagecoach actually on a fortnightly basis, I discovered recently. So that's ongoing dialogue around travel. So what I would say is I don't think there are plans for major expansion of our student numbers. I think also you may be aware that obviously the Chinese student market looks very different now since the pandemic. Obviously things may now change because China has fully reopened its borders, but that has perhaps changed the way in which students are coming from overseas. And also the Brexit again has impacted on students from the European Union coming to Britain as well to study, because the funding environment looks very different for them. So there has been some shift as well in our student population. So that comment I made, I think, about how it's been steady state, it certainly there wasn't particular growth into 22, 23 as well, but I just didn't have the current census figures to share those because they're taken at a particular point, and I didn't have the opportunity to get those.
But before I bring others in, I think just make an observation of what Jim said and Sarah's response, because I mean the points that Jim made are very legitimate, but it would be a mistake to think that those such tensions are unique to Lancaster. If you look at most cities which have big university and big student populations, there's very similar issues raised around the distortion of the housing market, traffic issues, etc. But I think what we've got to always bear in mind is that the university is a huge economic driver for the city, and it's creating a lot of economic activity and a lot of opportunity. And the other point I would make is that, yes, the fact we've got students living in the cities generates issues, but to play devil's advocate, one of the other arguments that university often has thrown at it is, well, you're almost like sitting in a hill, you're very isolated. At least when you've got the students in the community, they're actually making a contribution to good, and they're actually spending money in the community. So as I say, the points are very legitimate, but it's not unique to Lancaster. So I'm going to bring in, I'm not sure whether it's Howard or Liz, which of you it is that wants to this week?
Howard. Yeah, it was very impressive vis-a-vis the range of activities the university is involved in. And I was wondering, when you referred to your collaborations with the City Council, whether they included the City Council's community wealth building focus, which places an emphasis on social enterprises and startups. And this kind of occurred to me when I found out about the Work in Progress studio in Alexandra Square and its role in training graduates for to develop startups in the area. And I thought, well, this is exactly what's needed, really, because liaison with the City Council could be very valuable in providing space for startups. For example, Fraser House. Well, that's probably full now, but that was one initiative.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Howard. And I think I might have been on another call where you mentioned the work in progress, actually, and I've said to them actually how that had been mentioned, and they were quite pleased to hear that. So, to answer your question first about community wealth building, yes, we are involved in conversations around that. That's one of the things that feeds into the Morecambe Bay Anchor Collaborative work, because again, actually, how we help to impact positively on wider determinants of health is helping to, as mentioned before, but improve air quality, look at housing, good quality jobs, education, making sure those things are right. So, and also procuring locally where we can as well. So that's another thing. I mentioned one of our sustainability challenges is that 50% of our emissions in scope 3 are from our procurement and supply chain. Now, a lot of that we can't change because of the nature of what we're procuring, but what we can do is try and work with our supply chain and also support our local supply chains to be able to respond where they can to the opportunities at the university. So I think there's a few things I'd say. Actually, we're currently doing a review of our recruitment and selection processes at the university. We recognise that they don't necessarily bring in the widest possible range of people to work in the university from across our communities in Lancaster and Morecambe, and also more widely. And so we've actually been working with a number of organisations locally to understand what some of the barriers might be to employment at the university and support that. And I think, again, that supports that cycle around community wealth building. I know Work in Progress offers some sessions. I actually happened to have a conversation with them on Monday about this. So I know that they offer, I think, on a quarterly basis, sessions to local businesses to access some of that support around enterprise development. And we do, we are in discussion with, we continue to have discussions with organisations like those based in Fraser House and others. We have co-location space on campus as well. So I think, and actually, we're talking with another organisation this week about how do we, again, it's a bit of a pipeline, isn't it, about starting with a micro business, then you expand, you need more office space, then you really expand and you need a much bigger space. So actually, there's something about how we can all work together to actually support that growth pipeline as well, I think. So those conversations are happening, Howard. I don't think they necessarily move as quickly as we would all like, or necessarily, achieve all of the outcomes we want, but they're definitely in there.
Great, thank you.
Right, I'm going to go to Andy next.
A couple of issues. I was at a couple of the forums pre-COVID where Sue Black was actually hosting them, and it was all again about community interaction and stuff like that. And I brought up, and she said, "What's a great idea?" Was actually having a university community hub within the city centre. It's all well and good sort of saying to people, oh, we don't quite know what facilities are available for the general public because they're not really publicised. But then saying, oh, by the way, if you want to come and use them, you've got to get on an overcrowded bus and come up to the university. I mean, something that was great is Campus in the City. It's 2 weeks out of the year. but there's interaction with the general public. You know, great about the businesses and stuff, but I believe it's the general public you need to be embracing, not just businesses and technologies and stuff like that. Because campus in the city is really popular, and the students get to interact with the locals, but it's in an empty shop unit, and 2 weeks later it's shut down. Why? And I suggested this, and I don't know if anything ever came of it, but why not use one of the buildings in the city centre as a dedicated community hub for the people of Lancaster that they can go to? They can use facilities, they can get online to various departments at the university. Another thing I brought up at the forum was, I mean, this is my own opinion, personally my own opinion, the larger the university's got, the more insular it's got with the people of Lancaster. You know, back in the day, I mean, the Sugar House itself was set up by Barry Lucas for somewhere for locals to interact with the students.
Yes.
And within a very short time, it was signing only, and the student, no, I'm not signing in. You know, this is a student bar. So that sort of drifted away. And you know, things like I remember rag weeks and stuff like that. All right, it's a bit old-fashioned now.
No, it's
but,
not.
Yeah, I have a photograph of Market Square, and it is wall-to-wall people and floats going up. And it was those people interacting, the students interacting with the public. But now there's nothing like that. But I think a community hub in the city centre, and we're not exactly short of empty buildings at the moment. I think that should be something that the university really, really focused on. That's my opinion.
No, thank you, Andy, and I know that is something that people would really like to see us do, and I think it's really important, and I know it's frustrating for you that actually, I know you've said this out loud and we've heard it, but it doesn't necessarily move forward because it's part of wider investment decisions, I suppose. And I'm sorry to put it in that category, but obviously it's actually.
Oh no, yeah, I realise that, you know, there's restrictions for doing something like that, but you know, is it something that they're actually really focusing on, or is it just like, oh, he brought that up at the meeting, you know, it's a reasonable idea, let's move on to something else?
Yeah,
I just think it'd embrace the public if the public had somewhere in the city centre of Lancaster to go to, so that, you know, basically a 365-day campus in the city. You know, students can come down and explain what they're doing, what projects they're working on. You know, there's, you know, the World War I thing with the streets. You know, stuff like that. It got real good feedback and stuff like that, and then it disappears. And it's if people want to focus on it, jump on an overcrowded bus and come up to the university. So.
Yeah. No, thank you, Andy. No, I absolutely take your point. As a couple of things. Campus in the city hasn't happened for a few years, which you're probably really aware of. That's been entirely down, and that sits with my team actually. That's entirely been, well, partly obviously it was the pandemic, but we've had real challenges around staffing, which have now been resolved. So I do now have a team that can organise and deliver campus in the city. I don't think it's going to appear again in the next 3 or 4 months, because it will take us a while to get it back up and running. But we're absolutely committed to bringing back campus in the city. And I think whilst at the moment that certainly isn't going to be a 365-day offering, what I really would like us to do is think a lot more about where we pop up, and because absolutely your point about going to where the community is, it's really, really important. And that is clearly, obviously, often in the city centre. It's also in Morecambe, you know, that we have the whole district. It's Williamson Park. People go to the pub. We can do science in the pub. You know, there are lots of different ways that we can actually put together a range of things that people can access. And so that's something that with the new team members we're going to be working on. In terms of that community hub, you're right. I mean, currently we've got a couple of spaces in the city that we lease. One is at the Story Gallery, predominantly for postgraduate researchers. They use that as a touchdown base. So that's again another thing which actually provides space in the city. And we also have space in the castle as well, and we host quite a lot of partnership type activity, and we do some teaching activity in there as well. So we do have a number of things we're doing. It's the other thing that's really clear to me is that the that kind of community hub needs to sit alongside a broader vision for the city centre, in terms of not just what the university community hub would be, but what that provides for other organisations as well, if you like. So,
absolutely.
You know, and so I'm really keen and have encouraged that thinking as well, Andy, to really think what's the vision for what that community hub or building could look like, because I think in terms of what I can bring back into the university, I kind of need a proposition as well about what that's going to bring. And again, I think, you know, we've talked about partnership. I think it needs to be delivered in partnership with some of the other key organisations. So we haven't solved it all, absolutely. I'm really sorry if it feels more into, I'm sure it does, than 20, 30 years ago. I'm hoping that with the work Sue did and that she and I have continued, that we're trying to be more accessible and think about how we are connecting. I've also actually, just on that point about people coming to campus, in terms of that investment in the team, we are going to be able to facilitate a bit more community groups using the university campus for activities and meetings. So, for example, the Communities Together group, which some of you may be aware of, that the council supports but brings together a whole range of community groups. They'll be hosting their festival on campus, and we're helping them to do that in March. So we've got a bit more support in place to enable community groups to use space, and obviously, because one of the challenges is either it's being used for teaching or it's out of hours, and then it's a bit more difficult to access. So we're trying to make sure we can support that better. So I think there's both us being more visible and present in the city, and also making it easier for community to come to campus, notwithstanding costs of bus fares. Point noted.
Thank you very much for that. Cheers.
Thank you.
And I'm now going to go to Alan.
Yes, thank you, James. How great to see you, Sarah. 17 years, I can't really believe that, but nevertheless, it's a substantial amount. So 1 or 2 points, and I'll try and keep them all together, but there'll be the different points. You know, it's good to see your title is Civic Lead. Lancaster University would not have been here in 1964 if it hadn't have been for Lancaster City Council. And of course, there may be a fresh political complexion to it all. After the elections, of course, the whole council is elected in May for 4 years. And of course, the university ward will now have 2 representatives on that council, not 3. Because it's going back to the fact that the Bailey will be represented by nobody else other than the campus. At the moment, part of the rural area around Bailey makes it a 3-member ward. So there'll be 2 councillors for the city from the university ward after May. Sorry, this will need a note, Sarah, because I just want to continue the points. Please, can we have the date of Lancaster Exchange and the venue? Also on the slide, I think it would be good if you put £50 million against Morecambe, because we, on this occasion, got £10 million more than Blackpool. Blackpool got 40, we got 50 million for Eden, of course. There is a summit at the Winter Gardens on, you'll know this, of course, Sarah, on Tuesday, the 14th of March, one of the events that will be taking place in the lead up to the actual happening of Eden in a few years' time. It's not very timely that Northern Rail are cutting their rail service between Lancaster and Morecambe, because they will need, or somebody will need, better rail connections more often. And you know, the movement will be quite terrific. But going back to the city and also your comments, Andrew, that I support. I left school here in Lancaster in 1964. So, of course, the university celebrates its 60th anniversary next year. You can work out, therefore, how old I depressingly am. I heard some time ago that, you know, the 10th college that the university would have would be called City College. Andrew, you'll pick that up. There were town gown relationships from the beginning, not only Sugar House, there was a town gown club. Yes, of course, I'm harking back, but, you know, as I have said, the university might have been on the quayside, but the site at Bailrigg was offered. And the competition then was against Blackpool. So Lancaster got its university and Blackpool didn't then. So therefore, I want to also say that there are many of the students at Bailrigg are actually from families in Lancaster. You know, they've stayed here, they've studied here, they remain here. The former town clerk, now late, talked about students and residents and all of us getting what he called the Lancaster disease. So therefore, you know, we remain here, and we know how important the university will continue to be. It came at the right time when industry was leaving, and I had forgotten that levelling up was formerly called industrial strategy. I'd forgotten that point. Of course, it's not just industry, it's wider. So I think I better shut up, Sarah. Thank you, James. The university did have presence in more than just what you've said in the story formally, but it's good that there is this city presence. I would campaign for, and I know I wouldn't get it, but it has been mentioned previously, that the 10th college, there are 9 at the moment, and there have been 9 for many years, should be called City College. Thank you, Sarah.
So I don't think we're going to expect you to reply to that the very varied comments. I think there are more points to take on board, aren't there? That was my sense of you making the point.
Yes.
And is there anyone else that wants to make an observation or ask a question? Look and see.
Thank you for listening, Sarah, to that.
No, no, absolutely, Alan. You're very welcome, and I think your point about councillors is really important, because one of the things we have sought to do is maintain a relationship with our councillors, and obviously they represent the university or not the university, but the place on council. Erica Lewis actually has developed a strong, really built up over time that strong relationship with us, as well as those student councillors that we've had. So that is something we're really conscious of and continue to try to ensure we have a a relationship there. The Lancaster Exchange is the 22nd of March in the evening at the town hall in the banqueting suite.
Oh, good. Thank you very much, Sarah.
That's okay. I just discussed with my colleague today that we're going to send the invitation to David, and we were going to ask David if he would kindly share it with members of Lancaster Civic Vision. So that should hopefully reach you very shortly.
But there will be a new leader of the City Council after the 4th of May.
So
and of course you mentioned Erica. Of course, it's Caroline Jackson.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. Yeah, I meant Erica as our local councillor, ward councillor, actually. But yeah, absolutely. And again, for us, it's really important we work with whoever is the leader and the chief executive of the City Council, and we've seen a significant change in that space over recent years. Absolutely.
Yeah, good luck for the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got Pam and David wanting to come in, not quite sure which.
Just unmuting. Well, hi, I just want to raise one little issue that there are opportunities for the actual people of Lancaster and Morecambe to actually be involved with the university. We actually are involved with a fascinating, wonderful group called Friends International, which actually do a lot with international students. And it is the most amazing thing to be involved in, because you actually realize the rich sort of cultural heritage that the university has. And also, before I retired, I actually worked subcontract at the university for almost 3 years. And before then, I was didn't realize, was absolutely amazed just the rich cultural vibe there is on campus. It is just quite amazing. And I sometimes think, I know thankfully, there are only a small minority these days. There are people who think, oh, Lancaster would be far better if there was no university. And I sometimes just imagine in my mind's eye, what would Lancaster be like without the university? I think it would be a very poor, very sort of an amazing backwater compared to what it is now. So I'm really more commenting rather than asking a question, but just to say that there are opportunities to actually sort of get involved with sort of students and international students certainly on campus for lots of people.
Yeah, that's great to hear about, David. I didn't know about that Friends International group as well, so that's really pleasing to hear. And I think just I was thinking when Andy was mentioning about presence in the city, we supported the recent Chinese New Year festival that actually a couple of former or alumni of Lancaster have organised for 2 years in a row, because for us that was really important actually in terms of obviously celebrating Chinese culture and also making that connection between our students and the city as well. So I think that's really important. But I'd love to know more about Friends International, because that would be lovely if we could promote it a little bit more, or maybe it's something everyone else knows about. I don't know.
Again, it's something I've not heard about, and again, maybe it's worth the university actually looking at what interactive groups there are there and actually publicising them.
Yeah.
Because if they don't publicise them, you know, I don't know how you came across it. Well, was it by accident? You know, it was. Publish things that are actually out there saying, yeah, we've got this Friends International group, this is what it's about, come and join us.
Yeah, so Andy, in the interest of publishing it, I put the link to the website in the chat.
Oh, brilliant.
There if you want it.
Yeah, there you go. Like it's basically sort of works from the chaplaincy centre, so it is one of the groups that works from the chaplaincy centre.
Yeah. No, that's really great to hear about. Thank you.
Right.
Learn something new about the university every day.
Thank you.
Are there any remaining questions for Sarah? We've had a reasonably good go at it. Anyone else? Last chance? No. Right. Well, Sarah, thank you first of all so much for a really interesting, informative presentation. Also, thank you for dealing with the barrage of questions that you got thrown at you. But I mean, it really was a very good session. So thank you very much. And I hope you might be prepared to come back and talk to us at some stage in the future, because things are always happening, things are moving on. But as David said, I mean, and it was really good the comment David made, because the university is so important to the future of the city. And it's always interesting that everybody's interested in university, because I think there's a broad recognition. I mean, I've only lived here about 5 years, and I was quite astonished. Somebody just started talking to me one day in town, and I got this barrage of abuse about the university, and it was, it'd be great if it wasn't for university. And I was really surprised by that, because I thought, everybody would recognise that without the university, Lancaster would be a much poorer place, literally, But as David said, fortunately, that's very much the minority. So thank you very much, Sarah, for your contribution, and thank you everybody for coming along tonight. And as we trailed in the interval, we do have a number of other very interesting events coming up. Okay, so
can you just remind us, please, of the next meeting?
Yes, certainly. I mean, first of all, thank you, Sarah, for persevering so solidly there to get back in. Well done to you for that. That was marvellous. And it is being recorded, so I will put the recording out and put the middle bits out and everything else, and I will let you have a look at it first of all as well, Sarah. Really big thank you for that. 2 items coming up on the 8th of March on the Wednesday, our normal night and the normal monthly meeting night, and we've got Mariana Cavada from the School of Architecture the university, coming to tell us about the work that they're doing. And James and I have been up there and met the students just before Christmas, and it was absolutely fascinating. Not only fascinating, but it was so enlightening. The enthusiasm and the ideas that they had and what they were projecting out was absolutely brilliant. I was absolutely amazed with it. So that will be a really good evening. That is live at the Story Institute. But then on the 10th, just 2 days later, we have Ian Green of the Alliance of Historic Cathedral Cities and Towns, and he's given a dissemination on the report that we were part of, towards a better balance between heritage and growth. That was a survey and report that was done and published in July and September of last year, of which there were 12 cities that were invited to involve. We were involved as Lancaster Civic Vision, and the City Council were involved in it. To date, there have only been 2 other disseminations so far. One is at Oxford and one is at Cambridge. So I think we're in good company with having Ian come to that. That will be in the daytime at 11 o'clock at the Story Institute. So we've got a wealth coming towards us for March. You know, your bumper bundling March, and that's it. I think you know, we look forward to seeing you all at the next meeting.
Well, thank you all so much, and we'll see you all soon. So good night. Enjoy the rest of your evening.